Hi, I'm Gina Din-Kariuki, and as I promised, I'm continuing my story of the Gina Din Group over the last 20 years. Today we're going to talk a little bit about South African breweries who came into the Kenya market a year or so after I started my own business. And I have to say that was just such a challenge, because here we were, this sort of pretty much one-man show, standalone PR company, competing with the larger, more established PR companies that were here at the time, McCann Erickson, Ogilvy's, Churchill, and we got the South African Breweries account, which was, quite terrifying, quite overwhelming, but also very, very challenging, because they were here competing with EABL, and from a PR standpoint, that was absolute hell on earth. But it was so good for me. It was so good for me as a person, because I grew from these challenges of a very well-established brand that EABL was, to bringing in South African breweries into the market and getting people to understand that there was actually life outside of EABL in the beer world. But it was very interesting, because as much as we were building the SAB brand, I was also building my own brand similarly. Here was an unknown entity really coming into a market where there were well-established people in that industry. So as my story went along, I realized that not only was I building a brand, I was also building an industry. And I look back now and see how much we have contributed to the PR industry, and I hope that one day when the PR story of Africa is written, that history will will dictate that we occupy a small space of that. But going back to the SAB story, it was just really fascinating. I spent some time with them in South Africa. The challenges of a new market was just enormous. And I actually at times didn't feel that I was qualified enough to really represent this enormous challenge. There was regulatory, there was stakeholders, there was there's so many different stakeholders involved in this story of SAB, and it was very tough and very difficult. But we managed. We did as best as we can. Sadly, they didn't stay in the market. It was wasn't anything that was really one single reason why they didn't stay in Kenya. But I think from a PR point of view, we did manage to support them and give them as much advice as we could. And I think the other reason that they did come to us as opposed to one of the international companies is because they were looking for a company with local knowledge. And what we've tried to build over the last 20 years is global standards, but with local knowledge. And I think that's a very, very important point, is that sometimes you get international brands coming into country, and they've done great globally, but they don't have the local knowledge. So I think what we've managed to bring to Africa is the local knowledge, but with a global standard. Quite often we sort of aim to all want to be part of an international brand. And I very fortunately worked for an international brand myself, and it's time that I would never ever regret. But I do have to say there's some value in really learning your own market, your own country, your own continent, and really becoming an expert, an authority in that field, because then you can be globally acceptable, but with fully local knowledge. And I think that's where I have wanted to be, and that's where the last 20 years, completely sometimes by default, I feel has brought me. I totally fully got and understood the market in which we operated in. Thank you so much for watching. I hope in the last few minutes we've been able to give you some insight into what it takes to start your own business, into the PR world, into just knowing the African market. I hope you will share, like, subscribe. All the details are below. I really look forward to engaging with you in the next few weeks. My name is Gina Din-Kariuki, and you're watching Shaping African Conversations.